I will call the remote hearing of the Local Government Division to order. Today is March 23rd, 2022, and this meeting is being held in accordance of Rule 10.01, which was passed and allows for remote hearings. All of our remote hearings are recorded and live streamed by House Public Information. Josh, if you will take the roll, please.
Good morning. Representative Masin.
Masin present.
Representative Elkins.
Elkins present.
Representative Quam.
Present.
Representative Berg.
Present.
Representative Bolden.
Present.
Representative Hewitt.
Present.
Representative Mecklen.
Present.
Representative Olson.
Present.
Representative Joachim. Representative Joachim. All members but Representative Joachim are present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the minutes for Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. Representative Quam, have you read the minutes?
I will move the minutes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All those in favor, if you would all unmute, please. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The minutes stand approved. Thank you so much. Next, we have with us Chair Nelson with House File 4221. And hopefully we should be able to get this done a little bit before 9. I will move that House File 4221 be recommended to be re-referred to the State Government Finance and Election Committee. Representative Nelson, welcome into your bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. House File 4221 is a fairly straightforward bill. Currently in statute, 86 counties in the state of Minnesota, which is all but one, are allowed to set reasonable allowances for and per diem expenses for members of boards and agencies. That means all of the counties in the state except for Hennepin County are allowed to do this. This is just removing the words except Hennepin County to allow them to pay people to participate in boards a reasonable allowance or per diem so that they can get a broader cross section of the county to participate in these. And so I have Angela Conley, Hennepin County Commissioners here to testify.
Thank you. Ms. Conley, if you will identify yourself for the record and proceed, please, and welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Angela Conley. I'm a commissioner on the Hennepin County Board. And I want to give just a brief background and just why we'd like to move this. So in 1967, actually, the legislature enacted Minnesota statute section 375.47, and that allowed counties throughout Minnesota to set a reasonable allowance for expenses or per diems for persons serving on county advisory boards, which is how we get participation from residents in our communities. And that 1967 law exempted counties containing a city of the first class from paying allowances. And that meant that Hennepin County, Ramsey County, St. Louis County were prohibited from paying those allowances. So in 1978, Ramsey County was exempted from the exception. And in 2000, St. Louis County received an exemption from this exception as well, thereby leaving Hennepin County as the only county in the state that cannot pay allowances or per diem for citizens who serve on advisory boards or commissions. So HF 4221 really seeks to remove this exception for Hennepin County, thereby allowing Hennepin County, like all other 86 counties in the state, to, by resolution, set reasonable allowances or per diem allowances to be paid to members of boards or agencies authorized by statute. Hennepin County has a relatively small number of boards and advisory commissions where citizens serve without any remuneration. Hennepin County has found that this prohibition in state law acts as a barrier to its recruitment of a number of people whose time and talents could really advise the county on very important issues. Hennepin County has exemptions in other sections of law that allow us to compensate people on some of our other boards, such as the Library Board, the Human Resources Board, and the Capital Budgeting Task Force, and other bodies such as the Three Rivers Park District, the Minneapolis City Planning Commission, and the Mental Health Local Advisory Council, which I used to be a member of prior to my election to the county board. These are all allowed a stipend through other statutes. So there's just a few boards like the Race Equity Advisory Council and Extension offices, the Workforce Innovation, and a handful of others that we can't reimburse for their time. The rationale for the 1967 law has long since passed. All other 86 counties, as we mentioned, are allowed to compensate members of advisory boards and commissions, and Hennepin County really should be able to do the same. So I thank you so much for your time this morning and the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Okay, I am not seeing any questions. Is there any discussion on the bill? Chair Nelson, to your bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. Again, it's trying to get better, a more diversified participation on these boards. People that currently cannot participate because they can't afford it, to take off time from work or take off time from their other endeavors. This is an important thing for the county, and again, it's all 86 counties except for Hennepin County are allowed to do this. It's time that Hennepin County is allowed to do this also and get participation from their citizens.
Okay, thank you. I will renew my motion that House File 4221 be recommended to be re-referred to the State Government Finance and Elections Committee. The clerk will take the roll, please.
Representative Masin.
Masin, aye.
Representative Elkins.
Aye.
Representative Kwan.
Aye.
Representative Berg.
Aye.
Representative Bolden.
Aye.
Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Mecklin.
Aye.
Representative Olson.
Aye.
Representative Joachim. Representative Joachim. We have 8 ayes.
Okay, thank you. I see her listed here. Did Representative Joachim respond? Okay.
No.
At any rate, the bill does pass, and we will see you next in state government. Thank you so much, Chair Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Next, we have the Representative Elkins Bill 4141. And Representative Elkins, if you would like to move that House File 4141 be recommended to be re-referred to the State Government Finance and Elections Committee.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And if you would like to address your bill, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The next 2 bills are provisions that are carved out of my larger zoning reform bill, and I carved these 2 out because they're provisions that I have peace in the valley on. All of the stakeholders are agreed to allow these to move forward, and they're important. So the first of these, House File 4141, addresses a gap in current state law. Under existing state statutes, cities are forbidden from banning single-family manufactured housing just because it's manufactured. But it refers to a specific section of the building code that only covers single-family manufactured homes. So it does not cover modular apartment buildings, which are coming onto the market right now. And so what this bill will do is add the chapter of the building code that deals with modular apartment buildings to that existing statute. And I have with me this morning Mary Tingerthal. She's a former commissioner of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, and she's going to give us a short presentation on what modular housing is and why this is necessary.
Thank you. Ms. Tinker, if you would identify yourself for the record, please, and proceed. And welcome to the committee.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I am Mary Tingerthal. I live in St. Paul, and I served as commissioner of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for 8 years, ending in 2019. I'm going to take just a minute to share my screen. Okay, can people see my screen?
Or I
Okay.
can.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. Thank you today for hearing this simple bill. As I mentioned, I was commissioner until 2019. And in 2019, when I had a little more time, I was lucky enough to take up a topic that was of interest to me, and that is modular construction. The reason I'm spending time on it is because I believe it will eventually reduce the time and the cost of constructing new housing, particularly rental housing. I found corporate and philanthropic sponsors to put on an event called the Construction Revolution Summit. We had some members of the legislature in attendance. And we learned from people around the country what this modular construction is all about and why we should pay attention to it in Minnesota. We learned that Minnesota has a rich history of modular construction, including dynamic homes in Detroit Lakes, which has been using modular construction techniques for more than 50 years, and they presented at our meeting. I'm here today to ask for your support of House File 4141, which will simply add language to the section of the existing statute that already provides that local zoning bodies may not prohibit manufactured homes that otherwise comply with all zoning ordinances. The crux of the matter is that there are two different types of residential structures that can be built in manufacturing facilities under state code. Manufactured homes, often referred to as mobile homes or previously referred to as mobile homes, are governed by the Code of Federal Regulations. This was created in 1976 to provide standard guidelines across the country to raise up and improve the quality of manufactured homes. And they're already covered as to how they fit within state statute by section 462.357. And as Representative Elkins noted, they are therefore prohibit zoning officials from excluding them simply by their nature. There is a completely different section of Minnesota rules, chapter 1361, where that covers industrialized or modular buildings. And when I started researching this whole topic, I was delighted to find that Minnesota is really quite advanced in the way that our building code deals with structures that are built all or in part in an off-site setting. And because they're manufactured and shipped in one place and then shipped to another, these are called closed construction. And this chapter of the building code governs the manufacture, the construction, and the occupancy of those buildings. One thing I do want to note is that these buildings must comply with the Minnesota State Building Code, either residential or commercial, depending on the type of building. So these are completely covered by the State Building Code requirements without exceptions. They are not currently covered by this section that Representative Elkins has brought before you today. Minnesota is fortunate, I think, to have several really experienced manufacturers of offsite construction. At the top, you see a picture of the factory up in Detroit Lakes by Dynamic Homes and one of their multifamily buildings on the right. A newer entrant into this market is Rise Modular, located down in Owatonna, which has chosen to focus exclusively on multifamily and hospitality buildings, where Dynamic Homes has more of a focus on single family homes, although they do multifamily homes as well. And because no presentation about modular construction would be complete without showing you just how quickly these buildings can be constructed, I have a short video to show you this morning. This will show the construction of a building in South Minneapolis on 42nd, just to the east of, just to the west of Hiawatha. And this building was put in place in a total of 5 days in September of 2020. It had the benefit that it really reduced the disruption to the surrounding neighborhood. And the neighbors actually came to the zoning commission and said that they wanted this type of construction because it would mean less noise and less disruption to their neighborhood. And with that, I would like to thank you very much and ask for your support for this simple but important bill.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How is this treated any differently when calculating fees and assessments?
Ms. Tingersall?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and Representative Quam, yes, the fees are split between the Department of Labor and Industry, which does part of the review of the plans and inspections, and the local government, depending on how the building is set up.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It'd be nice to have that background information distributed to the next committee in line for debate on, discussion on this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands. Are there any questions on the bill? Okay. Still not seeing anything. Representative Elkins, if you'd like to complete your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I had the opportunity to actually drive down to Owatonna and tour the Rise Modular factory there, and also visit one of the apartment buildings that was being constructed in St. Anthony Village. And I can attest that the quality of this is just outstanding. It meets all of the building codes. I think that it's higher quality than stick built on site because it's all built under very tight tolerances, because the units all have to fit together like Lego blocks when they're delivered to the site. Very impressive. I think in terms of solving the overall affordable housing problem that we have, technology is going to have to play a significant role in bringing the cost of construction down. And these innovative companies that are building this housing are doing an amazing job. So I would urge members to vote to advance this bill. So I'll renew my motion that we recommend that this bill be referred back to the Committee on State Government Finance and Elections.
Okay, thank you. And Josh, if you will take the roll, please.
Representative Masin,
Masin, aye.
Representative Elkins,
Elkins, aye.
Representative Kwan,
Yes.
Representative Berg,
Aye.
Representative Bolden,
Bolden, aye.
Representative Hewitt,
Aye.
Representative Mecklin,
Aye.
Representative Olson,
Aye.
Representative Joachim.
Aye.
We have 9 ayes.
Thank you. So the motion prevails. Representative Elkins, you're on your way with that bill. And next we will hear 4271. And that bill too will be recommended to be re-referred to State Government Finance and Elections Committee.
And I will so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And then to your bill, please.
This provision, also carved out of my larger bill, stems from work that was done in the Department of Labor and Industries Construction Code Council's technical advisory group that was convened to evaluate provisions related to the building codes that were contained in draft bills that either I or Senator Draheim or Senator Coran were carrying. And I was able to participate in all of those meetings, learned a ton about the building codes. And the provisions in this bill are provisions that were discussed, negotiated among a very large stakeholder group, including the cities, the Association of Municipal Building Inspection Professionals, the housing industry, and a large number of people who are experts in the building codes. So there are 2 provisions in this bill that the parties agreed to. The first increases the reporting threshold from $5,000 to $7,000 for cities who are required to report their building inspection fee information to the Department of Labor and Industry. Raising this threshold reduces the number of cities that will be required to submit the reports without materially impacting the quality of the data that is reported to DLI. The second provision relates to how construction cost estimates are calculated for purposes of then establishing the building fees themselves. This is a process which, right now it's kind of the wild, wild west out there. A great many cities are using an established methodology that was developed nationally by the Construction Code Council. But it's kind of a wild, wild west out there. And so the parties agreed that this once again should be standardized. The Department of Labor and Industry used to maintain a standardized methodology. They're willing to take this back on without additional cost. There will be no fiscal note for this, but it is basically taking a national standard which will be maintained to make sure that the cost estimate inputs to the model will be reflect building costs in Minnesota itself. I don't think we have one testifier here. And then in addition to that, Scott McClellan from the Department of Labor and Industry, who supervises this whole process, is available for questions as well. Oops, Sandy, you're on mute.
Thank you. And Mr. Erickson, if you would identify yourself for the record and proceed, please. And welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nick Erickson. I'm the Director of Research and Regulatory Affairs at First Minnesota. I also served as a participant in the technical advisory group review of this and the rest of Representative Elkins' bill to legalize new starter homes in Minnesota. As you've already heard in this committee from the Mercatus Institute, Zillow, Zonda, and the Minnesota Realtors, our state's housing challenges are stark. House File 4271 addresses a small part of the state's housing problem. Fixing building permit fees alone will not solve the state's housing challenges. However, it is one of the 36 issues that need to be addressed, and this bill is a start. As Representative Elkins stated, today building permit fees must be based on valuation as determined by the local building official. This is a figure that is submitted by the builder, and it is their cost to build that particular unit. And there's a reference table for our building officials, which is actually partially based on square footage. Yet with this table and valuation submissions from builders that in many cases are updated weekly or monthly to reflect their latest construction costs, we see no consistency in valuation. And this is perplexing because valuation is what we in the industry call sticks, bricks, and labor, meaning that it's only the structure itself, and it's actually confined to the permanent systems. I know we submitted a white paper, it outlines this in a little more detail. This valuation, importantly, cannot include the lot or the land value, any developments, infrastructure that's added to the community that the home buyers pay for, nor can it include any off-site improvements or fees to the municipality. So really, because of this, if you're building the same home in any city in the metro, and even really within our climate zone 6, you should see a rather consistent accepted valuation for that particular home model. Yet what we see is valuation figures that can eclipse up to $150,000 more what it takes to actually build that home, when it would probably be about $275,000 to $300,000 of actual construction costs. We see, wide swings, and what we've seen in the last couple of years due to the pandemic, a lot of price swings in our own material cost inputs to put into our homes. This does, of course, affect the valuation figure. Yet, other than a minor plumbing code change, since the pandemic began, we really haven't had any major changes to our state's building code. So it's not taking any more time to inspect homes because the price of shingles maybe went up. And really what this bill does is addresses kind of the current practice of guesswork and puts it on a more consistent basis. Square footage-based permits is a concept that is actually gaining traction across the country. It's currently in place in communities across Wisconsin, California, Texas recently went to a statewide concept. Virginia and Georgia also use square footage permitting. Not every state's like Minnesota. Some states allow their individual cities and counties to adopt codes. Other states like Minnesota do it on a statewide basis. So that's why you're seeing, some states do it community to community, others state to state. But I know you have a lot on your agenda, so I just wanted to be brief. Thank you for your time, and I can address any questions at any point.
Thank you. And we also have Scott McClellan on board for questions. Members, are there any questions? And I see Representative Quam's hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually not representative, but the testifier, Mr. Erickson, will this sort of end the rinse and repeat process of where some places inspectors will come out and they'll find something, and then you have to take care of that. But sometimes this happens like 4 or 5 times, and then there's a charge each time the inspector comes out, and I can see where that the unknown of how long is it going to take to get through the process, and plus if the inspector comes out, they ought to be able to tell you hand you a list, and you can do it once. Does this take care of that rinse and repeat delay process?
Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Quam. Really, it only affects the valuation basis moving to square footage. It does not address, any practices, does not affect any practices currently in place other than how that initial fee is assessed. And I would yield to Mr. McClellan, who is much more knowledgeable on the nuances of this than I would be.
Mr. McClellan, welcome to the committee. And would you like to respond? And identify yourself, please.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Scott McClellan. I'm the state building official and the director of construction codes and licensing for the Department of Administration. Madam Chair and committee members, Representative Quam, to your point, when a building permit is taken out from a local government, they pay one set fee that provides for the inspections of the building. And sometimes those inspectors have to come back multiple times if on a particular type of inspection, if the work wasn't done properly the first time, or sometimes the second time. No additional fee is typically charged. Some fee schedules do have a provision for a quote reinspection fee if it goes beyond a certain number of inspections to help compensate and try to dissuade that kind of practice of not being ready. However, to your point, yes, when the building official or inspector makes that inspection, they need to be prepared to document that in writing. So the contractor on site knows exactly what they need to do in order to complete the work to code.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think offline, I'll try and find out what remedies we have for any bad actors in localities, because I know I have repeatedly had this brought up to me from different people. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members? Okay. Representative Mecklin, I believe the A1 amendment is yours. Would you like to explain it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. So like Representative Elkins, this has been an ongoing conversation for several years. I've talked to several building officials throughout the state that have expressed great concern that under the current practice, it is being used in much different manners. So, and many of them believe it's being used illegally and inflating these numbers. There has been a tremendous amount of conversation about a square foot practice as well. But how, I mean, with all the fluctuations we have and literally prices can change from week to week, and how are they going to accommodate for that? Where my amendment comes from is a per trip, basically a fee, because we have Metro West, for example. They identify the inspections. Once you pull that permit, they're listed on your permit card. They charge a flat fee of like $1,400. And that covers, it's your average home. Now, if the home is bigger, they may have a few more inspections that make the price a little bit higher. But it keeps it on a very, very fair playing field, because it shouldn't matter what the cost per square foot is if the prices fluctuate so greatly. And to me, this is a much more equal approach. Everybody knows exactly what it is. And I wouldn't even, after thinking about this, if there was things like was just brought up, additional inspections, there could be, as Scott McClellan said, an additional fee if they have a reoccurring problem with a particular project. But to me, this is knowing that Metro West does this, and so do many of the other independent or subcontracted inspector firms or inspection companies. It would be a streamlined process, and everybody would know going into it. If there's 14 inspections called out, it's going to be roughly $1,400. That is the point of my amendment, and I would like your support, and I'll ask for a roll call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to be official, do you want to move your amendment one?
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. Yes, I would like to move the A1 amendment.
Thank you. And Representative Elkins, do you have a position on this?
Yes, Madam Chair. The language in this bill, as it's written right now, was heavily discussed and negotiated among all of the stakeholders who participated in the technical advisory group process. It's a very carefully crafted compromise. And I think accepting any amendments to the bill as written would represent a breach of faith with all of the stakeholders who participated in that process in good faith. So I recommend a no vote on the amendment.
Okay. I just wanted something clear. Thank you very much. Again, I'm going to ask everybody to unmute. All those in favor of the bill.
Chair Masin, he requested a roll call.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. He did. Josh, would you take the roll, please?
Representative Masin.
Masin, no.
Representative Elkins.
Elkins, no.
Representative Quam.
Yes.
Representative Berg.
No.
Representative Bolden.
Bolden, no.
Representative Hewitt,
No.
Representative Mecklen,
Aye.
Representative Olson,
Yes.
Representative Joachim.
Yes. No, sorry, no.
We have 6 noes and 3 ayes.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. So the amendment does fail. And Representative Elkins, do you have any closing comments?
No, said everything you need to say, so I'll renew my motion that we refer this back to the Committee on State Government and Elections.
Okay, thank you. And again, if the clerk would take the roll. Josh?
Representative Masin,
Masin, aye.
Representative Elkins,
Elkins, aye.
Representative Quam,
Okay.
Representative Burke, Representative Bolden,
Golden eye.
Representative Hewitt,
Aye.
Representative Mecklen,
Aye.
Representative Olson,
Aye.
Representative Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
We have 9 ayes.
Okay, so the motion prevails and you're on all set with that item as well, Representative Elkins. And I will turn over the gavel to Representative Elkins for the next bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill we have for consideration day is House File 4441. And we're doing well on time this morning. So Chair Masin, would you like to introduce your bill?
Thank you. And I will move that House File 4441 be re-referred to State Government Finance and Elections Committee. And this is I think, a bill that is easy to understand and is also meant for public safety as well. It allows the council members or local officials to be able to stay in a secure or safe place if they have, I'll use an example as a health issue, which we have been doing with COVID right along. So that would be the main example. But this bill would make it possible in the future for that procedure to be used in local governments as well. It would just be a modification of the open meeting law. And I have Kathleen Gaylord, our Dakota County Commissioner, to give some background on that as well.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm Kathleen Gaylord. I am the chair of the Dakota County Board of Commissioners, but I'm also the president of the Minnesota Inter-County Association, which is a 15-member organization of counties throughout the metro and greater Minnesota. I am here today to testify, obviously, on in support of House File 4441. I'm asking for really a modest change in Minnesota's open meeting law to authorize some limited flexibility for members of public bodies to participate in official meetings from a non-public location for when family and medical conditions arise for those public officials. And that happens from time to time. I want to start by thanking Representative Masin for authoring the bill. And I think that the public transparency that's being addressed in House File 4441 responds to a need that really even existed before the COVID pandemic and is continuing. Public officials get sick and have to work through health and medical issues, autoimmune conditions, post-chemotherapy treatments are some examples, and for which medical officials or their doctors advise them to avoid being in the public. What's changed is that with the COVID pandemic, we've learned a lot. We have learned over the past 2 years how to maintain transparency and continuity of operations, even in the face of both personal and community public health crises. The alternative of not adopting a limited flexibility, such as proposed here in this bill, is the simple reality that elected officials dealing with serious medical conditions may not be able to fully participate in meetings and represent their constituents at county board meetings or committee meetings. Even though we have amply demonstrated during the past several years that we have the technological and the operational capability to facilitate remote access. House File 4441 gives governing bodies and elected officials the flexibility to continue their important work without having to risk either their health or the health of their colleagues or the public. It is very narrowly drafted, allowing for participation for family or medical reasons only up to 3 times a year from a non-public location. All the other safeguards of transparency remain in place. And while we believe technology supports maybe greater flexibility, this proposal is very narrowly drafted and recognizes that public transparency is paramount, but also that we need some limited flexibility that will better balance the health and medical realities of daily life, even for public officials. So I am asking for your support in this change, and hopefully we can move this forward. And thank you again, Chair Masin, for authoring the bill. I'll stand for questions.
Yeah, thank you. So also available for questions are Matt Masprin from MICA, Irene Gao from the League of Minnesota Cities, and Matt Ailing from the Minnesota Coalition on Government Information. So members, we have questions. I've seen Representative Quam has his hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What are the limitations on underneath the family category? I can understand if the member is not able to attend because of medical treatment and et cetera. But what are the limitations on the family member, that category?
I can answer it from maybe a limited perspective. I'm sure there are others that can give you more of the legal interpretation of the statute that has existed in the past. But we have had situations where members have avoided to be in the public under the advice of doctors because they're dealing with someone in their family who has who's immunocompromised, and it very limited, but it does happen. And maybe Irene can give you maybe something a little more specific.
Mr. Chair, members.
Gao.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Irene Gao, and I'm with the League of Minnesota Cities. Actually, the commissioner did a great job. It's exactly that situation. If you have someone in your family who may be immune compromised for all of the various situations that could apply to you personally, and you don't want to be putting that person at risk because you might be caring for your child or for your partner or whoever it might be, you're in the same household, so you want to be taking the same precautions.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Quam.
I'm a little bit confused because if you have 3 occurrences, that's stating that it won't be always. And having some understanding of, immune autoimmune and other conditions of where you restrict interactions, you're basically assuming that only for 3 meetings a year it matters. And if it is truly that you aren't going to be, you don't want to interact with others for the risk, then you wouldn't be attending any. Also, you'd probably have only remote work and other things working in there. So I don't understand. It just is not a logical way it's structured in this bill. So if you fix it, then I think it should go forward. But just on the, plain simple looking at it, it's not going to fix what you're talking about, because I'm not sure of any entities that meet 3 times a year or less. So you hit this, I'm going to pick 3 times where I'm not going to. It just doesn't seem logical. If there is more constraints of during, I've got a family member who's going through some special chemo treatment. So for a period of 3 months, I want to restrict, but it is generalized, and I don't think it's well crafted in that detail, and so I won't be able to support it till it's fixed.
So Representative Paul, I have the same question. Why only 3 times? And maybe Ms. Gaylord or some of the other available experts could address that question. I think it's a good one myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You raise a good point. We're looking for a limited exception at this point. It is the exception that we had during the emergency declaration, and it worked. So yes, I'm sure there are situations where more days would be helpful. Perhaps, that and the number of other issues have been raised by a number of people, and maybe it behooves us to bring together a group of people to take a more serious look at this and try to figure out how to solve all the problems. And I'd be willing to participate in that effort. But here today, we're just looking for at least a limited exception, and it works for most situations. We've had a situation in our county where one of our commissioners was diagnosed with cancer. And that's what prompted me to start to take a look at this provision. During the early parts of chemo, she was able to participate in meetings, but then her doctor said, no, her immune system is now compromised. So then we had to look, how do we deal with this? And, putting her in a public place when she's not supposed to be out in public doesn't work. And we certainly don't want her to have to notice her home or her hospital room as a public place in order to participate in meetings. What we found was she was able to participate. I mean, this goes a little bit to Representative Quam's concern. She can participate in the meetings like a member of the public. What she couldn't do is vote. And so what the law really stops a public official from doing when they're in this situation is they can't vote. So she was not able to take votes on a number of things because there wasn't a way to do that given her situation. And so 3 would have been helpful, and as she's coming out of chemotherapy, she's had issues where this would have been helpful beyond the 3 days, but the 3 days would have made a big difference for her in her recovery, just to be able to continue to participate and represent, her 60,000 constituents.
Mr. Ailing, does Minkoji have a position on this issue of the number of times?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I can speak to the history behind some of this if it's helpful. The public place requirement that's being discussed now, that's in 13D02, has been that was part of the initial structure of this remote provision when it was put into law several years back. And it was advocated for primarily by the Minnesota Newspapers Association as a way of ensuring that the public would have access to their representatives, not only during the testimony phase of a meeting, but the important before and after phases of meetings, especially at a local level when constituent issues come up and are able to be discussed and resolved between a member of the public and a representative. So much of that activity gets done in that kind of informal time before and after meetings. And so that's why that public place requirement was put in initially. Now, over time, there have been situations that have arisen, such as you'll see in the two exceptions that are in law now. So there have been instances where members of public bodies who are in the military services, for instance, have been unable to attend because they have been deployed and they don't have any recourse to be able to modify the terms of their deployment. And that was preventing them from being in a public place during the course of their service as a member of a public body. So there have been a couple instances that have been put into place as exceptions to that public place requirement. Now, generally, we have been supportive of trying to limit those exceptions. Could there be some other future discussion about immune compromised people, who would exceed the 3-day or the 3 time per year exception to the medical condition? Certainly, that could be a discussion to happen in the future. But I think pertinent to this bill, we've discussed this bill with the government stakeholders and don't have any problems with the modification they're trying to make now. We would just suggest that any future discussions about other modifications involve all the stakeholders, and we're particularly mindful of trying to make any modifications to that public place requirement limited and tailored, so that the public can continue to have access to their representatives.
So I'm hearing that we should engage with the newspapers as well.
I would suggest that they would be part of that discussion, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then Ms. Gow, I think you had your hand up.
I don't know if Mr. Mossman wanted to go first.
Oh, did not see his hand, but that's fine.
Mr. Chair and members, apologies about that. Matt Mossman, Executive Director of the Minnesota Intercounty Association. And I would just, underscore that Representative Quam, I think, does raise a good point. There is a need for a broader discussion going forward. But as Mr. Ailing indicated, we worked with both the Newspaper Association and Minkoji and had conversations about this bill and moving forward with this limited exception. I think to Representative Quam's question and point, and as has been articulated, the logic here really is one of compromise. The 3-day, the 3-time limit is what is currently in statute for the military exception. And so this aligns with that.
Ms. Gow?
Mr. Chair, members, Representative Quam, I agree. I think it is a very good question. I think part of your feeling is a consistent feeling in the conversations that have happened in the House. As you might recall, and as Mr. Ailing had discussed, the first time that we had conversations about this exception for the military exception was in 2019. And at that point in time, we had talked about, well, why is, in the House in particular, why is there that limitation of 3 times? And as things have progressed, it is something of compromise. And as you may or may not recall, it is something that would be agreed upon by both bodies. With this particular bill, it really does open up the ability to be able to use the medical exception, because the current limitation is, as the county commissioner had mentioned, is only if there's a state of emergency that has been declared. And so by striking the language, it would allow for situations like those who are either undergoing chemotherapy themselves or somebody in their household. So this would broaden it in that way, but you are absolutely right. It is only limited to 3 times a year.
So we are sending this bill back to State Gov, so there's an opportunity to craft an amendment, but we don't have a lot of time to do that. But it sounds like there's interest in continuing this discussion. So are there any additional questions or comments by the members?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Quam.
Thank you. And, I know with family members, many of us have faced either temporary or I know people that have given up their careers. There was a priority and they no longer can participate. And I hear organizations, but frankly, people want, if you're going to represent, being amongst the people is important. If you physically can't, this is a logical exception. When you brought it out to a fuzzy family thing, then, on a temporary basis, I can see some, but I want to have some clarification on the boundaries on that. But you've got to make a choice of what your priorities in life are. If you step forward to serve, then part of serving is being amongst the people because you are open for that interaction. The reason you're putting forward here is that being amongst the people isn't going to work because of X, Y, and Z. Military, they are serving when they're being deployed. And so, that's a whole nother discussion. So we have apparently another committee for clarification language to be done to gain my support. But until it is better defined, I don't think I can do that. And I just wanted to be honest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Quam. Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say thank you for bringing this bill forward, Representative Masin. We're in unprecedented times right now, but they taught us a lot of great lessons. And having folks be able to serve and continue to serve when they temporarily may have to take care of family, I think is very important. It goes to the broader discussion we've had around paid family leave as well. Folks serve in many different ways, Representative Quam, and I thank you for being willing to look at this as it moves forward. I think it's an important step. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Joachim. So I see no further hands. Representative Masin, would you like to renew your motion that House File 4441 be recommended to be referred to the State Government Finance and Elections Committee?
I so move, and I do want to add that to me, this is a reasonable and logical extension to allow for public people that are in public service. And I do want to emphasize also that a number of stakeholders were involved in this. So this bill is the product of that type of involvement. And I also want to emphasize, we have a number of written testimonies. It's from cities, from counties, from school boards. So again, those would be on the committee website. And again, I'd appreciate your support. And thank you so much for the discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The clerk will take the roll.
Representative Masin.
Masin, aye.
Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Representative Quam.
No.
Representative Berg.
Aye.
Representative Bolden.
Bolden, aye.
Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Meckland.
No.
Representative Olson.
No.
Representative Joachim.
Aye.
We have 6 ayes and 3 nays.
The motion prevails and the bill is on its way back to the State Government Finance and Elections Committee. And with that, Madam Chair, you may have the gavel back.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all our testifiers. Our next bill is 4345. And I will move that House file 4345 be recommended to be referred to State Government Finance and Elections Committee. And Representative Albright, before you begin talking on your bill, do you want to take on the amendments first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I understand that Representative Joachim will move that amendment.
Okay, so Representative Joachim, would you like to move your amendment and explain?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Albright. This bill, this amendment, the A3 amendment, is actually House File 3176 of Representative Freiberg's that we heard in committee, giving certain cities the ability to invest up to 15% of certain reserve funds in the private market. Currently, cities of over 100,000 or more can do this if they have a AAA rating. This just lowers it to the AA rating, which is still a very good rating many of our cities have. The amendment was drafted in consultation with the League of Minnesota Cities, and it's supported by the Minnesota Intercounty Association.
And with that, all those, if you would unmute, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Madam Chair, you're muted.
I don't know. I just, this is the most sensitive button. I apologize. Okay, the amendment is amended to the bill. And Representative Albright, did you also want to move the A1 amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, at this time, I'd like to move the A1 amendment as well.
Okay, would you like to discuss that?
Madam Chair, I would defer to Mr. Carlson for an explanation of the A1 amendment.
Okay. Mr. Carlson, if you would identify yourself, please, and proceed. Welcome to the committee.
Madam Chair and members, Gary Carlson with the League of Minnesota Cities. The amendment, the A1 amendment is a cleanup from an earlier draft of the bill. It was a piece of language that was inadvertently left in when the bill was jacketed.
Okay, thank you. If everybody would unmute, all those in favor.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, oh. Representative Plum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In order to have this, to avoid issues, we need someone from the committee to move the amendment.
Oh,
Madam Chair, I move it.
Okay, thank you, Representative Joachim. And with that, is there any further discussion on that? Okay, then if members would unmute, all those in favor of the A1 amendment say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The amendment is added to the bill. And Representative Albright, if you'd like to proceed, please.
Madam Chair and members, thank you for hearing House File 4345 this morning as amended. Due in part to PTSD and presumptive changes in the work comp statutes and the recent increase in the volume of claims, the time horizon for work comp benefits and therefore the supporting investment of funds to cover those claims has lengthened. Under current law, having a portfolio under that only yields 2 to 3% per year, and it does not keep up with the long-term needs of those claims. Without a modification to Chapter 118A, there will be pressure to have longer duration of fixed income investments, such as buying 10-year U.S. Treasuries instead of 5-year U.S. Treasuries. And that longer duration under current law brings with it its own set of risks, some of which are as volatile as equities. House File 4345 would authorize local government insurance trusts, cities, counties, and townships to have the option to invest assets per the current law authorization of the State Board of Investment, including corporate bonds, exchange traded funds, etc. The ability to realize higher investment yields over the longer term means lower property taxes. League Insurance Trust Board has a comprehensive investment policy that the board reviews annually with the assistance of our investment consultant and general counsel, and with the input of our actuary on historical investment risk and appropriate investment durations. And so with that, members, this is a fairly technical change to the statute that offers townships and cities, as well as smaller municipalities, with the opportunity to keep pace with those work comp claims. And I would urge members' support of this bill.
Okay. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And with the First Amendment, I want to make sure, can the author verify that only investments that are part of or have been okayed by the State Board of Investments would be available, especially to these smaller entities that were added with this last, or with that First Amendment?
Who would like
Madam
to
Chair.
address that? Representative Albright.
Madam Chair and Representative Kwan, thank you for the question. They are available based upon the SBI language, and we've also reinforced that by providing in the statute the requirement or the opportunity for each municipality to adopt a investment policy statement, which really reinforces the acknowledgement of their fiduciary duty to the investments that are held within their insurance trust.
Okay, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is what, when we heard the related bill in the recent past, that is what I was after in that bill. And I'm glad to see that this has that additional safety to it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other members' questions? I'm not seeing any at this point in time. Okay, in that case, Representative Albright, do you have any closing comments?
Madam Chair, brevity has always been my best friend, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. And I will renew my motion that House File 4345 as amended be recommended to be re-referred to the State Government Finance and Elections Committee. The clerk will take the roll.
Representative Masin.
Masin, aye.
Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Representative Quam.
Aye.
Representative Byrd.
Aye.
Representative Bolden.
Bolden, aye.
Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Macklin.
Aye.
Representative Olson.
Aye.
Representative Buakim.
Aye.
We have 9 ayes.
In that case, Representative Albright, you are on your way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Members, before we adjourn, are there any announcements or comments? Seeing no hands, we are adjourned. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.